If you're watching this video, it probably means you're thinking about going remote, working remotely, moving abroad, leaving the city, changing states or countries. Well, I've got 7 tips for you that I want you to think about before you do it. Let's check them out. Hey everyone, it's Rich UX from richandniche.com. And today I want to talk about working remotely and how does that look? How do you make that a reality? I ran a poll in my community. A lot of people want to go remote before the end of this year, and there's only 3 months left. We are in Q4. So I really want to throw down some ideas for you to be thinking about, because going remote is a bit of a logistics challenge. It's a little bit difficult to manage your life on the move all the time. So you want to be as organized as possible. Okay, so I'm going to give you some things to think about today and how to sort of approach this, because I've worked remotely a lot. I've traveled while working. I've tried to work remotely in Bali. So I know about time zone shifts and sort of adjusting to those type of situations. But I want to cover sort of 7 key topics today. Okay, we're going to talk about money, visa status, technology, service provision, housing options, packing, and dealing with your life left behind. Okay, so let's get right into it. The first thing I'd ask you if you were coming to me for some sort of consultation is, are you going for a short term or are you going for a long term? I think this really makes the big sort of decision tree at the start. If you're thinking short term, the key is the passport and the visa status. Can you get in? How long can you stay? Now, if you're thinking long term, this is where things get interesting and where I want to focus on today. Because if you're becoming a nomad capitalist, if you're wanting to take advantage of the different offerings other countries have for tax reasons, for lifestyle reasons, for political reasons, it might be something a little bit more long term for you. You might not just be thinking sort of a traveling experience. You might want to root down. So let's go over those 7 key topics, and I'll tell you a little bit about each one and the questions that arise from those categories. The first and foremost, most important, is money. Okay, working remotely is a privilege that is gained upon establishing an income that requires you no location dependence, that you get paid online for working online. It's that simple. And it's all about the journey to that. You know, at Rich and Niche, becoming remote is one of the most important elements of what we teach, because that gives you a lot of power, control, decision-making capabilities. That's going to increase your future-proof stat as well, right? The more you can be flexible as the world turns, the better off you are. I think you get to have more choices, right? The next question is to start thinking about, well, where does that money come from? How much do you need each month, right? And that's going to be dependent on how your lifestyle is and what you expect. And that's also going to be based on the country you desire to go to. There's certainly a variety of experiences out there, right? But one of the most important things, I mean, I assume that you're going to figure this all out. I assume that you're going to get the money, right? You don't need a lot of money. I mean, you're probably making money wherever you are. How do you just turn that into remote money? But what's really important about going abroad for longer term and establishing some sort of residency or visa is that you can prove your income, right? So even if you have all these invoices from your freelance, it might not be enough, right? It might not be convincing to another country, because what countries are doing right now, some of them at least, is they'll let you come in and live there as long as you're earning money self-sufficiently. As long as you can handle it and you don't take a job from someone in that country, they don't really care, and they're happy to sort of have you. I definitely know that Mexico is one of those options. Panama as well used to have a similar option. It's a bit changed. Now they have a digital nomad visa now. But there's lots of countries around the world that are opening their ideas up, but they want to know that you can handle yourself, right? So it can be important to establish a company, to establish a business format, and then pay yourself a salary You want to pay yourself a salary high enough that you're going to be able to prove economic solvency to these countries. Typically like 2,500 US would be enough for a lot of these places. But you don't want to pay yourself a salary so high that you start going into a higher tax bracket. You may want to leave that money in your company or potentially withdraw it as a dividend for some sort of an investment. So that's kind of where I start this whole thing. If you're not going to get the money, if you're not going to get the remote money, then none of this really works that well. You're just taking a trip, right? You're taking a vacation. But the whole point of all this is that you live a beautiful life all year round, that you retire now, that you don't wait till you're 65 to enjoy some aspect of your life. Go back and read the 4-Hour Work Week and understand why all of this is even important, why our lives and our happiness levels are going to be derived from how we design this. And a lot of it is just fear, right? You're just afraid to take these actions, and so you don't even consider the possibility. So I hope after today's video, you're like, oh, I can do those 7 things. Great. The next thing I'll talk about is visa status, okay? Are you actually allowed to go in that country without a special visa because you have a good passport? Like a Canadian passport is a good example. A Hong Kong passport is a good example. You can go to a lot of places and you don't even have to register. You don't have to apply. You don't have to pay. You just show your passport and you're in. 60 days, 90 days, sometimes 180 days, depending on where you're going. And again, it depends. Are you short-term or long-term? So some people will be constantly on the move, and they're the type of person who would max the visa out, the free visa or whatever it is, and stay for say 90 days. And then they're on to the next country. This is very digital nomad. This is challenging. It's more about travel. It's about earning while you travel, sustaining that because you love travel so much. But some people, they may want to move somewhere because they just don't like their current country and they don't need to travel. They're just trying to get the income so that they can go to that country without a job. That's the key for so many, right? So if you're going to stay in one place for a long time, the visa status will become an issue for you. And you have 2 options, right? I think you can look to try and apply for a long-term residency. That's possible in some of these countries. The other is that you just do what's called a border run, and you leave the country and you come back in pretty quickly, like the next day, and you just renew that visa constantly. Now, some countries, they don't really love you doing that. Some, they don't care, right? They just want you to follow that protocol, and the guy who lets you out is not going to be the guy who lets you in. So, maybe if you've got, 7 Costa Rica visas in a row, they might say something, but that's a different problem. So just a few more questions to add to the visa status, which we kind of like roped into that, is like, can you go in and out with ease, right? You're not going to be able to go in and out of Australia with ease. You're not going to be able to do a visa run in Australia. It's an island, right? So that should impact where you go if that's your plan. And if you are looking for residency, right, you're going to settle down for a while, then that's why it's so important to get the money right? Because to prove that you're going to stay a long time, you need the money. If you want to just come in for 90 days, they don't care what money you have. So if you want to be a digital nomad and you're willing to hop around, you don't have to worry about how much money you're making. But if you want to go to a new country and quickly establish residency there, I think you do. The third thing is technology. I think that's important because if we don't have the right technology to go abroad and to work on these things, it's not going to work, right? And so then it's like, well, what are you going to offer? So I think technology and what you offer while you're abroad, these are important questions to bring up. Let's actually look at the offering and the services first. Will you provide services while you're abroad? And there's a good chance the answer is yes. That's a big sort of core philosophy of all that, is that you can work wherever you want. Okay, so when you want to work, what do you need to work? Well, of course you need internet. So you can't go too far off the beaten path. But most places have sustainable internet now at this time that used to be considered fast. Like I know 30 megabytes up and down is slow now. It used to be fast. Computer. What is the right computer? Well, we'll get to that, but you do need some form of a computer. I don't know how many people can just run from their phone. That'd be pretty crazy if you could do your whole business from your phone. It's probably possible, but there will be some tough parts. So you probably need to get a computer. And what about all the media creation tools? Do you make pictures? Do you make videos? Do you make sound? Do you need a microphone kit? What are you going to do, right? And so you want to start thinking like, what services are the best to offer abroad, right? Which services require the least amount of equipment, right? I think if you want to be like the best marketer and the biggest agency, like you can't really be thinking about traveling. You're going to have to plant down and build a system out, right? I think we can get by with a laptop on all this. But if you are sustainable in one place, that's when you can invest in equipment and infrastructure, which allows your business to grow. Not everybody needs the biggest business. Some people would rather have the experiences, and I totally get that. Another thing to consider is, what about time zone? Do I need to be online with my clients at the same time? Or can I work asynchronously? Can I send them videos after hours? Time zone's a little bit of a factor. And also one thing that can be difficult, it might be possible to get, your services going while you're working remotely, that you can handle all the work. But what about getting new clients? One of the things I see is like when people are moving a lot, they sacrifice the lead generation, because when you move, you don't really have a network anymore, right? So how are you going to get clients abroad? I think you need one activity in your life that helps you get new clients. And so the easy answer would just to be go to like networking events, co-working hubs, where you're going to meet other digital nomads. You're going to meet other remote workers. Basically, all these towns around the world are forming where it's mostly expats and remote workers. The people who have figured out that, yes, Western culture is great, has so many advantages, but I want to live my life. I want to explore. I want to travel. I want to build character. I want to take risks. I want to see things. I get that. But don't leave without a plan to keep getting clients if you're going to provide services. Maybe that's where you work with a partner. So the technology for those services, I mean, I'm going to use a laptop anytime I'm abroad. That just makes sense. But I also really like the iPad Pro. I think the iPad Pro is about 80% of what you need. And with its condensed like nature, how thin it is, the Pro has some really beautiful screen sizes. I've edited 4K video on my iPad Pro. I think that's pretty powerful. So, I'd say Apple is, pretty solid to work with in this case. Get like a 13-inch laptop, an iPad Pro, and an iPhone. You're going to have a lot of power in those three devices. I think if you're a remote worker, you don't get as much choice. I think you got to go with what is the most effective, small production kit that will work for me. Phone, yeah, again, I use iPhone right now, but I've used Android in the past. I think Android can have better media capabilities at sometimes. I think Android can be a better phone to bring abroad. That's one thing to consider. Make sure your phone is unlocked. If you're going to take a phone abroad, you need an international unlocked version. Most times now they're all unlocked, but it used to be about 5-6 years ago, that was a real concern. And so where you bought your iPhone really mattered. You couldn't like buy your iPhone at like, whatever they're called, AT&T or Horizon or whatever these places are in America. In Canada, we have like Rogers and Telus. It's, if you bought from them, the phones were locked. So you couldn't just take them abroad and put a new SIM card in. So make sure that your phone model is compatible in those regions you plan to travel to. Now that you're sort of prepared with what you need before you go, I guess we could add in packing. Clothes is going to be a big part of your packing and equipment. It's really going to be those two things. You can't bring much more. You don't want much more. You want minimalism. Absolutely. You want lightweight. I definitely went through times where I was carrying way more than I wanted to. I remember carrying a DJI Phantom 4 drone around Southeast Asia for like half a year, when it's this big backpack just for a drone. Now I'm so happy to have the DJI Mavic Air, which is about this big for the box. So can fit in your luggage without a problem. Don't bring your drones necessarily in the cabin because of the batteries. They're better off, or maybe you have to bring them in the cabin. If you're bringing a drone, make sure you look up the rules around batteries. Packing, I'm not really going to talk a lot about packing. I think it's important. I think you need to be efficient, but it's easy. That's never going to be the big problem. So that's one of the things, but I'll just say, you can definitely bring everything you need in a big suitcase, one backpack. I think especially if you're using your iPhone for a camera, like you don't need a lot of camera lens equipment. I do think the iPhone 13, iPhone 12, iPhone 10, these are really good devices and they're better than I had. And when I was traveling in the earlier years, and I think that, it's really hard to say no to the minimalist aspect of those devices and how powerful they are for their size and weight. And when you're a remote worker, these are new things that you think about, size and weight, because every time you move, which you may be moving, multiple times a year, you got to bring everything with you. Maybe I'll do another video of how I would pack. Not this one. Housing options. That's going to be a big thing for remote workers. There's a lot of options out there. Of course, you can go with the standard hotel. Those are the most expensive, right? In most cases, hotels, they are charging you for cleaning the room. They're charging you for the service capabilities, and you may not even use much of that. So a lot of remote workers tend to go for Airbnb, something a little cheaper, hopefully, something where they don't have any services, but the home is quite nice. I think as a remote worker, if you're making content, obviously picking an Airbnb that has a nice aesthetic can always be a huge bonus. And I think that if you make content, you can write off some of these expenses. So as long as you're making content for your business, if you need a place to shoot your content, well, there's a percentage there that you could commit to that. Now, if you can make your whole trip about making content, there's arguments there that that's all a tax write-off. Okay, so ask your accountant, but know that traveling has incentives beyond the experience. It may include tax write-offs if you can use a portion of that trip to invest or contribute to your business growth by creating media. So you create like a little 8-hour day, and first stop is this tourist place, and you're going to take a video there. Then you're going to have lunch, and then the next stop is back at the hotel, and you're going to record a vlog. I don't know. I do know that there's ideas there for you to explore on your own. If it's not a hotel or Airbnb, your next choice is a short-term rental. Short-term rental is going to be probably word of mouth or locally found. I don't think there's a lot of great websites that support that. And I think that in a lot of the places where remote workers go, there's a lot of negotiating to be had. I think if you're willing to stay for a certain amount of time, you can definitely get a better price. You may have to put like the first month up all at once, or like a security deposit of an extra month. But I think most people are operating on like a short-term rental, like a 6 to 12 month, 3 to 6 month. Long-term rental, I consider over 1 year. That's going to be the last step. That's going to be after you're convinced that you like this place and you'd like to stay there for some time, and you've set up your residency and you don't have any visa issues to deal with, right? Because if you're long-term renting, like what if your visa runs out and you can't get back in or something, right? Well, maybe you go to another country, no big deal. But that's why you don't necessarily want a long-term rental. I know couples who do visa runs where only one person goes on the visa run at once, because if you can't get back in, you can't get your stuff. So keep that in mind. None of this assumes that you have children. If you have children, you have to add on a whole bunch of extra things for them, for their health, for their safety, for their needs, for their education, for their health, medical kit, activities, food, clothing, diapers if they're young. So make sure you make a very extensive child traveling list, but I haven't assumed that you have a child here. The last thing I want to talk about before I let you guys go today, and wow, I've been talking for 20 minutes already. I'm so sorry. I'm so boring, I know. Dealing with your life left behind. Once you go remote, you're going to lose a lot of relationships. People are going to be jealous that you're going remote because they know that is the new wealthy. The new wealthy have power that is not purely money. I mean, it is kind of money, but it's more of like lifestyle decision making, right? Because the day you say, I want to work remote, that's the day you stop doing things that tie you down. You start letting go of that client that makes you meet in person. You have to, or else you aren't going to be remote. And in fact, you're trapping yourself deeper. And some people are so trapped, they're so deep into their situation, they could never dream of going remote. They'd have to unwind so many things that they don't have the confidence to unwind. Think about it. If you're in a job that locks you in locally and you become like the local specialist, your whole educational path has brought you there. If you let go of the job, maybe there's no other job like it. Do you have to also let go of the education? So that can be really difficult for some people. So I think that if you're going remote, you're privileged, you're lucky. You probably earned it though. You probably earned that privilege. You should feel proud if you make it to be remote, I think, without having a boss. It's a very exceptional step. I think it's very powerful. Now, things that are going to be left behind that you might want to deal with properly is your housing. If you own a house, you got to get someone to rent it. You got to get someone to manage the property. You got to get someone to respond. There's these companies out there that will do all that for you. They'll help place someone, vet someone, and then they'll overlook your property while you're gone on call. They're going to take a percentage of your rent. If you're renting a place, well, just get on a place that you're finally month to month. Get the power back. Some people are always in a lease. They can never get the power back and they're just lease after lease. Stay longer than 1 year. Go on month to month if it's possible. Get the power back that I'm ready to cancel today and I'm canceling. 30 days, I'm gone. Mail forwarding. You might want to mail forward your stuff to your family or to your new location, but if you're on the move, it can be difficult. So finding a family member can be good. They can package it up for you in a bundle. Storing your items. Again, you might have to ask your family to store a box or two for you. They should be able to do that. But if you've got a substantial amount of stuff and you don't want to sell it, you could get storage. Storage is like $150 a month, maybe up to 200 in some spots. That's pretty high though. And you get a little locker and you put all your stuff in there. And I've done that many times. That's if you're coming back, right? If you know that eventually you're going to come back, like don't sell all your stuff. Just put it in storage. The time and money it will cost to rebuy everything plus selling it, it's difficult. And finally, just closing up your relationship ties and letting people that you care about know that you're leaving and telling them what you're going to be doing and why, and just letting them know that you want to keep in touch and that you might know that that's difficult, but it's important to you. And maybe it isn't. Maybe it isn't important to you. You don't have to say that. But if it is important to you, just connect with those people. But now, back then, like there wasn't FaceTime like there is today. There's email, postcards if you go even further back. But it's easy to stay connected if you want. But I'll tell you, the second you leave the country, those people, they have to let go of you. They don't know if you're coming back. They can't wait for you. And you shouldn't wait for someone else that does the same to you. I mean, if someone's moving their life that way, that person's somewhat ambitious. And it's very unlikely that their high school friends are their friends later in life. And it doesn't mean you don't like them. It just means that it's not really in alignment anymore. It's not in the same ballpark even, There's some people who love the city they're in. They have no intention to move. They like their job. They don't care that they're tied to it because they like it. There's a lot of people who can't stand working in one place. There's a lot of people who can't stand doing the same thing every day. I get that. And they just want a more fun life. Like part of the problem of the last 30 years has been a very wonderful time, in many aspects through traveling, tourism, and it's improved a lot. And it's just the way it's become ultimately that people want a life that's a little bit more flashy ultimately. You know, they want to have that Instagrammable lifestyle. And there's value to that. So I don't really blame them, right? I don't blame them at all. But it takes courage. It takes courage to do all this work, all 7 things. It takes courage, it takes time, it might take some money. So let's just review those 7 things. You got to get your money right. How much do you need? Where's it going to come from? And can you prove it? Visa status. How long? What do you need? Can you do visa runs? Are you going to be offering services abroad? What does that mean for your equipment and technology needs? What are you going to bring with you? How do you bring it all? Go light. Housing options. Packing the right things. Deciding if you have children or not. Making the right choices for them as well. And then dealing with your life left behind. Are you closing up shop? Or are you holding on for when you're coming back? There's no right or wrong answer. The more money you have, the more options you can do. The less money you have, you probably got to sell everything and just go. And that's okay. You can do that in your 20s and you'll be just fine. You come back in your 30s, you can settle down, you can invest more time in one place. But in your 20s, do not be afraid of any of this. Do not be afraid to take the risk. Doesn't matter how bad you fail. You have enough time to pick it up. Now, I also believe in being awesome from the day you turn 19 and on. I also believe in working really hard. What I'm saying is that you have time to take risks if you desire those risks. And I think most people, they don't realize that the risk and the fear in their mind of doing something crazy or big or ambitious, it's way bigger in your mind than in reality. And there's always people out there doing what you want to do. Go find yourself some inspiration. And that's all I'm going to say today about how to work remotely. At least how to think about it as you go abroad and prepare. I think I can do a few more videos now about establishing the best services, targets, but this information is for many different types of people with many different situations. You may need to leave right now. You may not be in any rush. You may have tons of options. You may only have one option, you know? So I think just take this content, lay out your plans, go through those questions, see if you're ready, and then take the plunge. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe in case this is the first video you came across. Check out richandniche.com for information about becoming a remote digital marketer, freelancer, or consultant. Hit me up on Instagram at richandniche. I'm always available to answer your questions and especially about going remote. So see you guys in the next video.